Hello, everyone. Thank you for staying for the African Working Group session, and we thank Moses and Ifeyiwa for their great and inspiring presentations. We will now go into the question and answer session. Yes, so we have our first question from Sheung. Sheung is asking, how can one volunteer at the PMIEF? How can one volunteer at the PMIEF? That question will go to Otema.
Thanks, Adiola. So glad that people are excited to volunteer. What I would say is first have a look at the that sponsor section there where PMIEF talks. There's a brochure that you can download. And also TT Park, who is our regional mentor for PMIEF in Africa, could be your first port of call. So I would encourage you to go to the PMIEF sponsor area within the Africa Virtual Conference and also reach out to TT Park.
Thank you, Otema. Our next question is from Coco. And Coco asks, even the number of governmental white elephants that fail in Africa, can we be tempted to think that Africa is resistant to project management teachings? This question will go to Moses and then Otema.
Thank you. This is a very good question, very insightful, and it calls for reflection. I don't think Africa is resistant to project management principles or the framework for executing project. I think what it is Africa hasn't embraced the benefits of project management, the rigor of project management. So this calls for an opportunity, actually, just as it is a challenge looking at those white elephants across Africa, and not just in the governmental sector, but we've even seen it in private sectors as well. We've seen it in our villages sometimes, uncompleted projects. We need to change a paradigm shift as to how we look at projects. Projects have to have a beginning and an end. We have to manage risk associated with project implementation. So I see Africa is in resistance. I don't think that's what it is. It is really about fully realizing the benefit of the project management framework, the principles of project management, and Africa will get and start soaring, rising, achieving all across the board. And that's what I'll say about that question.
Thank you for that great insight, Moses. Yes, Otema, please go ahead.
Thanks, Adiola. I just love that enthusiasm that you were showing. I agree 100%. I think if you think about what PMI's sort of brand position is about, taking that idea to reality, right? And so there are a lot of great ideas, and maybe that's why you're seeing that, oh, there's a bit of white elephants, and it's around that execution. So it's really about building both the capability, so that's around the skills, and then the capacity, so having the right amount of people to be able to execute the project. So I think one of the things that we're excited about in the PMI team and at the Africa team is to really, how do we go about really helping to build that capacity building the skills, getting people skilled up in the frameworks and the approaches so that they can do it, and having that at scale. Right, so that's where you get into the capacity issue, so that you have the right amount of people to be able to execute against that. And we've got some great initiatives in place that you've seen throughout the conference around getting your certifications and CAPM and PMP, as well as doing a number of the courses. So we look forward to, in the coming weeks and months and years ahead, is to really begin to scale project management skill and capability on the continent.
Thank you, Otema. Our next question is from Hazel. Hazel asks, I think in Africa, project overruns issue is beyond project management itself. It's an interesting topic and a case study that I think might need to be explored. So what do we want to talk about for project overruns? Why do we have project overruns in Africa? Ike, do you want to take that question?
Okay, thank you, Adiola. I think the first thing we need to look at is what was the real objective behind the project when it comes to Africa. Sometimes projects are not actually initiated because of the business value or the community value that the project is there to provide. And you know, if we're frank to ourselves around what happens around Africa, we have to look at the environment. A project doesn't exist in isolation; it exists in an environment, and we have to take that environmental impact and understand that as well in order to drive the real objective. So if you're doing something just because you've tagged it a project and you've tagged it that there's a value behind, you've tagged it as a project and you've tagged for the purposes of the public that, oh, we're doing X, Y, and Z, it really is not a project in the real sense that is providing value. And if we're not providing that value, then there's no real desire to get the job done. Because, you know, as we all say, there's an idea that there's stakeholders that are very keen to achieve, and then project management comes in to make that idea a reality. Now, if the stakeholders and the idea, there's no real substance or drive to do it, then we get into a situation where projects just stop, fail, and are not there, because in reality, they were not projects in the real sense. And in Africa, we have a lot of that where you know, it is a means to a different end rather than a means to, you know, community development, environmental improvements, and actually delivering the benefits for the intention that, in quotes, is being tagged as a project.
Thank you. I think that's a brilliant answer. So it means that if a project is not really supported or it's been driven by some other hidden agendas, then it might have those kind of issues with the project overall. Thank you. Anybody else want to tackle that question?
Let me add to that while we're, so Adiola, let me add to that while we're thinking about it. So that's why we have these green elephants, pink elephants. That's why we have projects that are abandoned, because there's no real value. Because if you believe there's real value in a project, you will have the real desire to make it happen. But if there's no real value, then nobody's interested in whether it gets delivered, whether it doesn't get delivered. And then we have these, you know, great concepts, let me call them concepts, that just you know, lying across Africa in different ways, because there was no real value, no real determination, no real desire behind getting that project delivered. And that's the first thing that we as project managers across Africa have to understand, that if we're involved in that process, let's make sure that we work with the stakeholders to understand that there's real value behind the projects that have been done, that there's a real determination for the project to succeed. And if we get that stakeholder engagement, stakeholder agreement, then we can move forward. Obviously, we understand there's a political angle, governmental angle, and something like that. But our role as project managers is really to make sure that that value is there and that there's determination behind it. And then we can take over, in quotes, and then make sure it happens. You know, we can take over and make sure that idea becomes a reality. But if they're not interested in the idea in the first place, then, you know, we can't succeed. We simply can't succeed. So that's a mind shift that we as Africans and we as project managers have to make sure that we start to instill to the stakeholders, the organizations we're working through, to make sure that they understand that, look, are you really doing this for value? Are you really doing this to, you know, to make the difference it needs to be? If you are, then let's do it. If you're not, then, you know, we can use our strategic mindset and innovation mindset to redefine the scope so that at least something is delivered as part of it. You know, it might be a big project, but we take an aspect that at least as a project manager, you can say we've delivered an aspect that has value, that is creating an impact of the bigger project, so that you can claim that as the success story behind it.
Thank you very much.
I also wanted to just add to, you had asked, Adiola, I think what's also really important is that the project manager needs to be involved in the ideation period as well. So I think it's not only in the execution. I think that's kind of a big paradigm shift that's really important. And I think for those of you who listened to Tyru's presentation on Brightline, you can see that there's that bright line that connects you from that idea to that reality, right? And so it's really important to be involved in that ideation, in the strategy, in the planning, and not just the execution. So that's the part that I think that we have to have a bit of a paradigm shift. That the project manager, historically, you've been engaged in execution, but you now have to be involved in the strategy, in the design, and in the change management as well.
Absolutely.
Adiola, if I may come in, I can't help it but to ask something on the concept review. In fact, at NASA, we look at our project implementation framework in two phases: formulation, and implementation. The two goes to equals to execution. And the formulation involves a phase that sometimes, depending on the complexity of the mission or the scope of the mission, it can go anywhere from 6 months to 5 years. You won't believe it. Simply reviewing the concept, simply being in the formulation phase. So this is what Ike was talking about. You really have to review the concept. And project management, there's a misconception out there. Project management doesn't begin with the implementation.
Absolutely.
And that's where Ike was going, or Tim touched on it. It goes way back, guiding the stakeholders on how to even determine and establish the project parameters, the objective, the scope, open the eyes, so to speak. And so when the project management profession is being defined in Africa, we really redefine, I'm stressing redefine because of Ike's comments. We really need to go way back and pull it from where it actually begins. Concept review is as critical as implementation. Spend time on the front end, as we say. So think about it. I did say 6 months, depending on the complexity of the mission, to 5 years, just reviewing the concept, fine-tuning it. And sometimes this is a bad concept. It won't value return on investment. I don't think there's anything on their investment, so let's stop it. So concept review is really, really an essential part of project implementation and project management. So that's all I have to add for the sake of time.
Thank you. That's great. I like the interaction. I like the conversation. Thank you very much. I think that's very insightful. So we'll go to our next question, which is from Marco. How can project management ensure the improvement and development of collaborative projects between African countries?
Oh my.
I'll say that again. How can project management ensure the improvement and development of collaborative projects between African countries? Who wants to take that?
Let me jump in on this one.
Okay.
I think competition sometimes is great, and sometimes competition can be an enemy of the good itself, the intended objectives. So if you're talking about collaboration, the way we know it, across implementing a project, achieving a set of objectives from the beginning, and you want to collaborate, you really have to know the entire stretch of the project management framework, beginning from concept all the way to decommissioning, and look at the skill sets available. You're talking about collaboration. Again, I can tap into my background where we've done collaboration across the board, sometimes in international domains, different languages, different geographical regions, different expertise coming on board. But you really have to scope, you really have to scan the project from concept and look at where the talents and the skill sets are and who is more qualified to do what. And then you begin the collaboration. It will surprise you to know there are instances, there are scenarios where you collaborate without even contributing money because you're bringing expertise. There are instances where people simply bring facilities for doing 6 months of testing, and that's all they are contributing. And then there are instances where somebody else will put money on it. So collaboration, we have to step back. Collaboration is not just getting yourself in a very nice hotel room and network and say, oh, Ike is my friend, I know Otima, and then we spend 2 weeks over there. I'm talking about really stepping back and redefining what collaboration means. So if Africa is looking at the project management framework to improve collaboration and enhance collaboration, it's a step in the right direction because there are skill sets. The life cycle is really broad and you will find room for each skill set and each partner, each collaborator. And that's my response to that question.
If I can add to that, Adiola, if you don't mind. And I put on a PMI hat and a regional mentor hat. You know, there are a lot of projects happening across Africa. What we don't do as a continent is, oh, I'm doing a project on X, Y, and Z. Let me find out who else has done it. Okay, let me tap into the skills of others. You know, PMI and this Africa conference itself was a platform there to exchange those ideas. So collaboration is wide. So, you know, a problem may have existed that you're working on your project, but it's been solved in another continent. If you don't have that platform, that's avenue, or even that intent to say, look, I'm about to start projects is about building a gas refinery. Ask around. Has somebody done it before? Is there somebody within Africa that has done it before? Let me collaborate on that level with them to see their lessons learned, what problems they had, what challenges they had, so that we can take that back and then imbibe it in the project I'm doing today. So all of us as project managers here have to be aware there are platforms there. PMI provides a fantastic platform that just asks, look, I'm about to start a project building a 20-story, 200-room hotel. Has anybody else done a 200-room hotel? That's the collaboration. That's the question you ask. Then you share lessons. And I bet you if you do ask that, I mean, there are hotels all over Africa. There will be somebody that's done one. So you begin to negotiate, not negotiate, collaborate, exchange ideas, feedback, and then we start building that collaboration. But if we sit down in respective countries or respective companies and say, no, I'm doing a hotel, and you're starting to reinvent the wheel, at that point, we have a problem. And these are problems we can solve ourselves. It's just a matter of ask the question, be open, make noise. I'm about to start it. Anybody who can provide me guidance and help, let me know. Then we start getting that collaboration from, and I'm talking implementation, ideation perspective. And then we don't make the same mistakes that have been made before. So I'm just adding a different angle to it, is that we can do it now. We don't have to wait for anything. We can just, you're starting a project, ask the question. Ask the question.
Thank you, Ike. I think PMI is already actually doing that by showcasing the existing projects in Africa, some very, very unique and important projects that are happening in Africa. And that's why you had the Dangote Group have become the keynote speaker for this session, this African conference, and was able to share with us all the issues that have been the challenges that were done with the oil refinery. So I think PMI is already doing a great job through that angle. Also through the angle of the General Executive Council. The companies that belong into that group, they're able to collaborate across countries, across industries on that level, and then share ideas and share knowledge, share lessons learned. I think PMI is already on the way to doing that. So that's a great question, and we've had some great insight on that. So can I move on to the next question? Yes. Okay. So our next question is from Sandile. What is the value of CAPM certificate? I guess everybody is familiar with PMP. We want to know about the CAPM certificate. Otema, can you take that? Or Marcel?
Yeah,
I can take that.
I can happily take that one. Thank you for that question, Sandile. I think it's really poignant for the context of Africa in particular, because I know myself, I got the CAPM credential because I didn't yet meet the requirements of a PMP credential. And so that CAPM had tremendous value for me. And I think it does throughout the whole of Africa and the rest of the developing world as well, because a lot of people just don't have the privilege of going straight to university after high school. You know, they might not graduate at age 22, but they're already in the workforce. And so that was true for me. Getting the CAPM credential, got it at 26. And even at that later stage in terms of a youth career, it had tremendous value. It unlocks the world of PMI. It unlocks the massive network that you get from the project managers around the world, the amazing network of volunteers, and then the extended family of PMI. And it obviously also gets you that brand recognition that PMI carries. You know, the CAPM is a track to the PMP for sure. And so it gives you that stamp of approval to say that you know your stuff. Walking into a room, if you got a PMI credential on your resume, it just goes better for you because the people on the other side of the table, they tend to know and they tend to respect you for that. And so talking to the value of the CAPM, dollar for dollar, it was probably the best couple of dollars that I ever spent because it just did so much for my career. It just unlocked so much. For the past 4 years, I have been blown away by the world of PMI and everything that the PMI has done for me and the extended network. I've now got friends in almost all continents around the world. And, You can't get that without the CAPM or some other credential from PMI. So as a first step into that world, it's fantastic value, and I cannot recommend it enough for anyone who's looking to pursue it.
Wow, what an awesome testimony from Marcel. That's great. That's really encouraging and inspiring. So for those that are considering CAPM, please go right ahead. Our next question is from Marco, and it goes, how NASA is making the bridge with African countries to develop local capacity, either on the downstream or upstream new space or deep space exploration.
Oh my. So I thought I made it clear that I was making this presentation as a PMI volunteer speaker and not in my official capacity as a NASA official or a NASA employee. So I'll do my best to give some insights. What we do at NASA is for all of humanity. We look for talent around the globe. What we achieve and what we accomplish, it will surprise some of you to know, and actually it's not a surprise. You can go to nasa.gov and in the search window, type in spin-off technologies. You'll be surprised anytime you're on a highway and you find your first responders or fire engine folks with a very unique equipment within minutes cutting a crashed vehicle into two pieces so that they can save life. Remember NASA. We came up with that technology to be applied in space, in the International Space Station. And then we realized it has dual value. It can also be used here on the surface of planet Earth to save life. We call those technologies spin-offs. There are many, countless technologies I can list. From medical research, you won't believe, because we have to take care of our astronauts, the impact of space on human physiology and human anatomy, all the way back through bone density, things that we have known, even nutrition, we have to feed our astronauts. So we have very unique insights when it comes to medicine. All of these contributions are being channeled into the economy, broader economy here on the surface of the planet. So the name NASA and the work we do often connotes that we work only in space. In fact, dollar for dollar, since the dollar currency was being used by myself, let me use that as well. If we were to do the calculation, we inject more of NASA's work into the global economy than we spend in space. So the question is, how is NASA going to build capacity in Africa? Over my 20 years plus at NASA, I've taken this question, different forums, different gatherings, and this is the response. NASA is the United States government agency. It is not the State Department, so we don't undertake those kinds of assistance programs. But we do a lot of collaboration, was the keyword that was put out there. Our scientists, as we collaborate around the world with almost all countries, there are a few exceptions around the world. But going back to the spin-off aspects, and I need to share this with Africa, and I hope there are leaders listening to this. The technology, the engineering, the science that goes into NASA's work, we call them allied engineering disciplines. So if you look at it, setting up a space program, it doesn't mean necessarily you're going to launch a rocket or a spacecraft. But the spin-off technologies that will migrate into your mainstream economy will blow your mind. There are studies out there, and you can look this up, that over the past 30, 40 years, anytime the United States stepped up its expenditure on science and technology, including NASA's work, the US economy boomed, it went up. And we've done studies to see what was going on during those times. And anytime the United States went flat and said, well, let's take care of social issues, we don't have money to spend on space or research, science, and technology in general, the economy went flat. I have been talking to African leaders. I've been projecting this idea. You don't have to necessarily set up space programs that are launching rockets, but thinking along the lines of the allied disciplines, technology is here to stay. Our lives today are extremely dependent, exclusively, almost in some cases, dependent on technology. Think about the offshoots, technologies that will come off these kinds of endeavor. So in terms of building capacity, I've always said this, and I think you pick it up from my presentation, Africans in different walks of life, very brilliant. Starting very small, we can do this on the continent without a narrow focus of simply pushing children into medicine architecture, and a few areas that would think that's the only area. Those are the only areas that will enhance life on the African continent. This gets me very passionate. If you give me 1 hour, I wouldn't stop. So you have to, I do like you have to stop me. So what is NASA doing? NASA doesn't come out looking for African countries to partner with them. But there are creative solutions to that question on how African countries can reach out to NASA. I've seen a few in my 20+ years over there that have taken the effort, actually come to NASA, knocking the door and saying, yeah, we know you're not the State Department, you don't give grants, but NASA, can you talk to us? And as a son of Africa, when I see that, I get very emotional, and we try to see what we can do. So African countries can actually come to NASA asking questions. My boss is very, very, I want to say that she's so far by African countries and what we can do. Except sometimes, let me stop right there. So yeah, there's a lot in response.
Thank you, Moses. That's great. So we are encouraged to ask questions from NASA. So please take a note of that.
Yes, you are.
And yeah, I'm going to skip the next questions about CAPM because we just talked about CAPM, and I'm going to go to the next question that talked about what can, I think Moses touched on what can NASA bring to Africa, and that we shouldn't look at it just from the capacity building within Africa. Love what you said about using PM as rocket fuel. What are transferable technical aspects of project management from NASA that can be used in Africa, especially for large industries?
Oh my, big time. So at NASA, Adiola, if I may jump in right away, we manage complex systems. And I pointed out in my presentation that we embrace 100%, we embrace the project management, the PMI project management framework. NASA has been celebrated back to back throughout the years for perfecting the project management discipline and how we do it, how we go about it. So what can Africa learn from NASA? NASA's approach to project management. Why? Because it helps you to handle complexity. What is complexity? When I look at some of the systems in Africa and how we go about project implementation, you have diverse stakeholders. Some of our projects are cross-national, 3-4 countries. That's complexity right there. Different geographical region, different interests. So what NASA, one thing that NASA can point out to Africa, please embrace PMI project management framework. It works magic. Believe me, if I have to give you one secret from NASA, I'm going to say, we use the project all our complex projects are executed within the project management lifecycle framework. Why? Because that's the only way you can have your hands, you can grasp, you can conceptualize complex systems, different stakeholders, coordinating technical difficulties, setting up requirements, managing them over sometimes 10-year duration. How do you do that? How do you do that? So NASA, I strongly recommend that to African countries. Otema, do you have something to add to that?
Great answer.
I didn't intend to put PMI on the spot, but I think Africa is really craving for project management. And whether the scale in terms of the project, whether it's small in scope or scale, whether it's complex, like building a dam, name it, whatever it is, believe me, the project management frame is been tested, it's been proven. We use it to put a man on the moon. The International Space Station is orbiting Earth as we speak. We use program and project management to build that thing and sustain it, and it's flying and do all the resupply. There are projects running those missions.
Fantastic.
I didn't mean to put PMI on the spot, but this is really powerful. Africa is ready.
Otema,
yeah,
can you top that?
No, I don't think I can.
All right, so
it's that passion and enthusiasm that many of project managers bring to their projects that lead to the success. So I think I want to end it on his point, because I really do believe that project management can be a transformative sort of engine, transformative tool for Africa. Absolutely.
I agree completely. So thank you for that. We heard some great speeches from chapter presidents, including Rwanda chapter presidents, As chapter mentor, and this question is for Ike, what role do you think chapter leaders can play in leading projects in Africa?
I wonder if we're out of time. It looks like we're getting the time signal.
Okay, how many minutes?
We're out of time.
We're out of time.
Yeah, we're
Is
out
that
of
the last question, or are we done? George?
Yeah, let's, I think we're out of time, Adiola, so you might want to thank the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so sorry I didn't get my cues on timing, but it's been a great afternoon. It's been engaging, and the panelists on the question and answer sessions have been fantastic. So thank you everyone for staying back. Thank you for a wonderful, wonderful PMI African conference. And we wish you all the best. And we are very excited about taking the project management into the next level in Africa. And go ahead and enjoy the closing session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.